Would you believe me if I told you I was attacked by a jealous mannequin? Unbelievable, right? I was a field agent for the Foundation, undercover in the FBI, reporting secretly to the Foundation when there was an anomaly or an entity suspected to be an SCP monster. On this fateful day, I didn't expect to even see anything out of the ordinary. We had been called for a human trafficking case, and a tip led us to an abandoned warehouse in Las Vegas. Armed and ready, we performed standard procedures. No response from the warehouse, we infiltrated it. Some of my male colleagues went down to the basement, while my team and I searched the top for a little while longer. We found nothing, but a call from Ethan, the captain of the other team, came in saying they saw movement and thought it might be one of the victims. He said they were wrapped in plastic sheets and they approached it slowly. So my team rushed to where they were just in case they needed help. When we got there, I saw that this victim was actually a female mannequin. We were all stunned at this anomaly, but before we could process what we were looking at, the mannequin got insanely violent and attacked me. It broke off its fingers to make a sharp edge and lunged at me to stab me. From that sharp edge, resin was coming out. At the time, I didn't know what that was for. Now that I do, I'm glad I didn't wait to find out then. I quickly dodged its strikes. My mates shot at it, but it ignored its broken pieces that fell off and just kept attacking me. Just me. Guns weren't working. In a desperate attempt, I grabbed my stun gun and shot it at the mannequin. It worked, and she froze. We quickly wrapped it in a way that it wouldn't get out. My colleagues were too baffled to understand what the heck was going on. They tried to make sense of it. Maybe it was electronically powered or something. I placed a secret call to my higher-ups at the Foundation and reported the case. The Foundation found a way to capture the mannequin from the Bureau, and I was tasked with making my teammates who saw the mannequin forget about it. I did that easily using the Weeks later, I asked about the mannequin. Enough research and experiments to determine what it was would have been done by then. The mannequin was designated SCP-847. It attacked any human that wasn't biologically male. It had 3 modes: the Z mode, the Y mode, and the X mode. In the Z mode, it basically just remained a mannequin. If it ever moved, it was to change clothes. Then it would go in front of any available mirror, strike a pose befitting the cloth it wore, and remain in that position. The Y mode occurred whenever a male was around 50 meters. It changed to provocative poses and high-pitched whimpering gasps. You can't understand what it's saying with normal hearing. It becomes fully animate and approaches the male. The male can alter its pose to any style, and it would retain that style as long as it has balance. It basically wanted to please the male. When the male left the 50-meter range, it breaks a part of its body, internally or externally, a part she believes the male didn't like or the male made a comment about. It would sob a little, then go back to Z mode. X mode occurred whenever a female was around 50 meters. It basically got violent and attacked, just like it did to me. It would break a part of its body to make a sharp edge and try to injure the victim. Once it had done that, it would shoot resins from its eye, mouth, or broken part of its body into that injury. That resin is actually dangerous, you see. It hardens any soft female tissue. As long as it's not male or inanimate, it would harden its tissue, and it would spread around the victim's body, making the victim become the same material as itself. Of course, the victim won't survive that. Then it would break off parts of the victim that are missing on itself and merge them with itself. I had goosebumps. I would have been a spare part for a mannequin if I wasn't skilled. Luckily, it can be stopped for a while when it is heavily shocked by high voltage of electricity. The resins become temporarily solid. My stun gun saved me. I have been moving around with it ever since.
Darkness. That's all I saw when we stumbled upon that cursed pool in Canada, SCP-354. We thought it was just another Euclid thing, you know? Weird and dangerous. But we had it under control. Damn. We were wrong. My team and I were posted to Area 354 as a replacement for Watch Station Epsilon 38, which we heard was wiped out by an entity that emerged from SCP-354 called SCP-3541. It was the first, and it was unexpected. Who knew? Besides pulling in anything it came in contact with, that wretched blood pool could also bring out living, hostile entities. SCP-3541, I heard, looked like a giant bat and was easily neutralized by one of the mobile task force teams. That was my dream, you know, to be good enough to be recruited into a mobile task force. That's all gone to shit now. We had our orders. Watch the pool, be prepared, and stay far from the pool. Anyone who entered the pool was never recovered. It was simple enough. We were sure we could handle more bats, and if it was more than what we could handle, we would just call on the mobile task force. And we were doing pretty well. There were no more bats, but more entities emerged. Grotesque, hostile creatures that defied reason. Like an echidna-looking creature the size of a bear that was covered in razor-sharp bones. Or a levitating black sphere that could shoot concentrated radiation beams, instantly crippling and later killing its victim. Or the feline creature composed of ice and another composed of magma. Or the humanoid reptilian creature that was 15 feet tall. One even looked like a human Indian male, but I think that might just have been a regular Indian male in the wrong place. Oops. Lots of things popped out, and sure, there were casualties. Sure, but none, I mean absolutely none, came close to the one the Terminator dealt. It had been 8 months since the last emergence, and honestly, I was getting bored. I wanted some action. I even stupidly prayed for one, and the blood pool heard my prayers. It was a regular day, or as regular as it gets around SCPs. Suddenly, that crimson goo started bubbling. That was the sign that something was about to come out. I remember thinking, finally, some action. But this time, it birthed something worse than our nightmares. All of us surrounded the pool. Guns aimed, ready to off whatever came out, but nothing did. This had never happened before, and we were very confused. But before we could even think of what could be happening, the first scream came from Jimmy. He had a big hole in his chest. Poor bastard didn't stand a chance. That's when we all heard it, the low hum of its systems. We were dealing with an invisible robot. Our agents were being ripped apart quickly, one by one. Everyone started shooting at the location of its last victim, aiming at the floating stains of blood. But the ones that did hit it just bounced off like raindrops on a window pane. Panic set in as it continued dismantling my colleagues with ruthless efficiency. This thing wasn't going down. It wouldn't even let us call for help. Destroyed the tents that we had set up. Everyone got cover. Sorry, tried to get cover behind the trees. It was futile. It wasn't even trying to escape the area. It just wanted carnage. Anyone who moved was killed. Besides being invisible, it was just too fast to follow. I fired from my hiding place. Yeah, but it was like bringing a knife to a gunfight, where the shooter was invisible and had speed and precision. I saw my buddies drop like flies, and I was scared I would be part of them. We had been in this losing battle for over 40 minutes already. It felt like an eternity. More than 80% of us had been wiped out. The rest hid as we witnessed destruction take place. Vehicles floating in the air before being thrown at trees and tents. It was taunting us. From where I hid behind a tree, I saw the inventory tent. Mike, our captain, had pointed it out to me. He ordered me to go get a bigger gun and infrared goggles. He was going to distract the Terminator by running the other way. He gave the signal and ran in the opposite direction. We felt the Terminator move quickly towards him. I quickly ran into the inventory tent. The air behind me filling with gunshots and the screams of my colleagues who tried to cover our captain. Inside the tent, I found some researchers hiding. I even found a rookie guard hiding. Poor guy didn't know what he signed up for. I ignored them and looked for the infrared goggles. I found where they were stacked. I wore one and picked 3. I looked around for a big gun, and I found one. A nice, long bazooka. I put a rocket inside and quickly ran out the tent, feeling very confident and ready to send that Terminator back to hell. I was too late, though. It had gotten rid of most of my colleagues, and even my captain. But I could see it now. It was as deadly looking as I imagined. A metallic humanoid machine with no weapon. It had been ripping through our forces with just its bare hands. It was stained with the blood of my colleagues. I was pissed. I dropped the goggles I held and aimed my bazooka at the motherfucker. "This is for my team," I declared before shooting the rocket at it. Boom. Clean hit. The explosion shook the area, and I was sure that I destroyed it, but I couldn't have been more wrong. From behind me, I felt the Terminator grab me. It ripped my right arm from my body like it was a piece of paper. I have never felt pain like that in my life. I wanted to die, but it wasn't done. It used my severed arm to beat my leg so hard, I felt my bones crush. Words can't explain the hell I was in. The Terminator threw me to the floor, letting me bleed out. Time slowed. My heartbeat started to fade. My vision was blurry, but I could have sworn I saw the Terminator smirk at me as it walked closer to me, to finish me off. I wasn't ready. I was shaking right there on the floor, in the pool of my blood, as I gasped for air. And just when I thought it was over, SCP-35418 suddenly powered down. Just like that. The invisible terror became visible. A motionless behemoth standing amidst the wreckage. I lay there, motionless like the machine, unable to comprehend what just happened. I had passed out and woke up weeks later, and given the updates and terrible news, I lost my arm and legs, which meant I was now useless to the SCP Foundation. We lost over 90% of everyone stationed at Area 354. SCP-35418 was quickly dismantled, and its parts were studied. The pool made a mockery of us, as if it was telling us, "My toy toyed with you like you were nothing." We knew we didn't win that battle. I didn't even think I would survive, but I somehow did. The echoes of that night will haunt me forever. I lost it all, and that pool, it took its pound of flesh. My pound of flesh.
It's one of the craziest things I have seen. I found it both hilarious and chilling at the same time. Please keep me anonymous because I still work there. This weird SCP had just been captured. I've seen a lot of weird
SCPs
in my day, but this one was especially interesting. It was, and I kid you not, a dollar bill that radiates a glowing amber aura. I saw it for only a very short second, and I almost lost my mind because of it. I had to have my psyche reevaluated for weeks before I could return to my post. That dollar bill has crazy effects on whoever looks at it. Whether you see it directly through a mirror or through a camera, it makes you want to have it by all means. The longer you look at it, the stronger the desire to have it. It's so bad that you will stop at nothing to fulfill the desire to get it, willingly resorting to violence and even self-mutilation to achieve it. I believe that SCP-501 is an extreme representation of how many people would do anything to be successful. The Madness Dollar, as I like to call it, was kept in an opaque box and was heavily observed from cameras. Anyone that tried to get to the box without authorization was immediately apprehended for psyche evaluation or killed on sight. After a while, we researchers started to wonder what would happen when one actually does obtain the dollar. Do they feel fulfilled? Do they feel every extreme thing they did for it is worth it? Would they magically be wealthy? I was especially curious about what would have happened to me had I gotten it. So after the required permissions, an experiment was conducted. We have containment cells with D-class members. If you don't know, D-class members are inmates on death row that were approached by our agents and given a choice to come to the research facilities for a month and be let go after or face their death row. Of course, most chose the first option. Who wouldn't? so a D-class member that I'll just call John Doe was picked. The guards went into the containment cell and removed all other inmates. Then we chained John Doe to the wall. We all left, and the security cameras were all switched off. A programmed robot arm opened the safe box containing the Madness dollar, picked it up, and allowed John Doe to see it briefly. He was already reacting, but not yet wildly. The robot arm moved the Madness dollar into a machine that immediately sealed it in a steel opaque case. Then we entered and unchained John Doe. Immediately we did, he ran to the case where the Madness dollar was in. The cameras were turned back on, and we, the researchers, moved to a safe viewing space to observe John Doe's actions. There was a speaker on the ceiling of the containment room to communicate with John Doe. We were instructed by the higher-ups to grant all of John Doe's requests, as long as it didn't involve releasing him, wouldn't get us visually exposed to the Madness dollar, and wouldn't break safety and security protocol. And so the test began. For 10 minutes straight, John Doe stared at this opaque box without blinking. Some of us believed perhaps he could still see the Madness dollar through the case because he stared at one spot. After 10 minutes on the dot, he started to strip all his clothes while muttering, "I must remove the contamination," over and over again. He threw his removed clothes at a corner of the cell, then looked up at the speaker to request a razor blade. We discussed briefly among ourselves, then granted the request. Armed guards took the razor to him. He didn't fight or try to escape. He just took the razor from them. As the guards left, John Doe started to really violently shave off all the hair on his body, cutting himself several times in the process. He didn't react to the pain at all as he did. He just kept muttering, "Begone, unwanted possessions." As I jotted down his actions, I got chills. This could have been me. He discarded the shaved-off hair and blade in the same corner as his clothes after he was done, then sat in a cross-legged sitting meditation pose, a lotus position, and started meditating without breaking eye contact with the sealed box for once, not blinking or looking away. Minutes later, John Doe nods in agreement while saying, "I see," like he was replying to the case, then stands up again and looks at the speaker and declared, "I hereby renounce all of my worldly possessions other than the Holy One. I do not need anything other than the Holy One. Everything else is contamination and must be forsaken." My colleague acknowledged his request, and John Doe went back to his former position and continued meditating while staring at the case. We observed him in shifts till he dropped dead 4 days later. He didn't move from that position throughout, didn't ask for food or water. He just stared at the case. Autopsy showed he died of thirst. What a way to go. At least he died happy, right?
You would love this horror story about SCP-352, the Puppet Hag. Don't forget to like and subscribe.